In the heart of Willow Creek, a bustling suburban neighborhood, there stood a quaint apartment complex called Pinewood Estates. To outsiders, it looked like a friendly, welcoming community. But to those who lived there, the truth about its owner, Mr. Charles Whitaker, was no secret. Charles had owned Pinewood Estates for over 2 decades, and while he kept the buildings well-maintained, his behavior toward tenants was anything but kind, especially toward those who didn't fit his narrow worldview. The Jenkins family moved into Pinewood Estates during the early summer, filled with a sense of hope and excitement. Marcus and Tanya Jenkins were no strangers to hard work. Marcus, a skilled mechanic, often worked long hours at the local auto shop, while Tanya balanced her time between her job as a nurse and caring for their 2 children, 10-year-old Maya and 7-year-old Jaden. The couple had spent years carefully budgeting and saving every penny they could, determined to leave behind the cramped and dilapidated apartment they had previously called home. Finding a 2-bedroom unit at Pinewood Estates felt like a dream come true. The neighborhood seemed perfect, a quiet suburban area with tree-lined streets, friendly neighbors, and schools that consistently ranked among the best in the district. For Marcus and Tanya, it was everything they had envisioned for their children, a safe place to grow up, with opportunities to thrive both academically and socially. Maya was eager to join her new school's art club, while Jaden couldn't wait to play soccer with kids his age. At first, the Jenkins family kept to themselves, focused on settling into their new home. They unpacked boxes, hung family photos on the walls, and turned the modest apartment into a cozy, welcoming space. Whenever they encountered neighbors, they were polite and neighborly, always greeting others with warm smiles and kind words. Maya and Jaden quickly made friends with the other children in the complex, often playing outside together under the watchful eyes of their parents. But not everyone was as welcoming. Charles Whitaker, the landlord, made his presence known early on. He was a man in his late 60s, with a sharp tongue and a reputation that preceded him. Longtime tenants had warned the Jenkins family that Charles had a history of treating black tenants poorly. Though he maintained a facade of professionalism, his prejudice often revealed itself in subtle but unmistakable ways. He would mutter under his breath when walking past black residents, scrutinize their every move, and frequently accuse them of being loud or disruptive for simply going about their lives. The Jenkins family soon found themselves under Charles's unwelcome spotlight. It began with small incidents. One day, as Marcus carried groceries from the car to their unit, Charles appeared and commented, "Make sure you're not blocking the walkway. We have rules here." Marcus, taken aback by the abruptness, assured him that he was being careful. Tanya noticed Charles's eyes lingering disapprovingly whenever she played outside with Maya and Jaden. The tension was palpable, but the Jenkins family resolved to remain positive, hoping that their actions would prove they were good neighbors. However, it wasn't long before the situation escalated. Charles's disdain grew more overt, and the Jenkins family became his primary target. Despite their best efforts to blend in and follow every rule, Charles seemed determined to make their lives difficult. The complaints started small, almost unnoticeable at first, but they carried an undertone that made Marcus and Tanya uneasy. Charles accused Marcus of parking too close to the dumpster, even though the car was parked squarely within the designated lines. Marcus double-checked the space after receiving the warning and couldn't see anything wrong. Then, Tanya received a formal notice tucked into their mailbox, claiming their children were leaving toys in the hallway and creating a hazard for other residents. Tanya was baffled. Maya and Jaden always kept their toys inside the apartment or in the small backyard area. She asked the kids if they had left anything out, but they were just as confused as she was. When Marcus tried to address these issues directly with Charles, hoping for an amicable resolution, his efforts were met with cold indifference. "Mr. Whitaker, I'd like to talk about these notices," Marcus began, trying to keep his tone calm and respectful. Charles barely looked up from his clipboard. "Rules are rules," he said curtly. "I understand that," Marcus replied, "but we're not breaking any rules. Can we go over the specifics?" Charles sighed dramatically. "If you can't follow simple guidelines, maybe this isn't the place for you." The dismissal stung, but Marcus chose to hold his tongue, not wanting to escalate the situation further. Still, the interaction left him with a knot of frustration in his chest. One evening, as Marcus mowed the small patch of lawn near their unit, trying to keep it neat and tidy, Charles approached with his usual scowl. "You're ruining the grass," he snapped, his voice sharp and accusatory. Marcus paused, turning off the mower. "I'm just trimming it to keep it neat, Mr. Whitaker. Isn't that what we're supposed to do?" Charles crossed his arms, his glare unwavering. "I don't need your help. Just stay out of it." The interaction left Marcus fuming, but he reminded himself to stay composed for the sake of his family. From that point on, the tension between Charles and the Jenkins family intensified. Charles began issuing fines for minor infractions that other tenants weren't penalized for. If the kids played outside and laughed too loudly, there was suddenly a warning for disturbing the peace. If Tanya hung a decorative wreath on their door, it was deemed a violation of building aesthetics. Each fine and notice felt like another brick in the wall that Charles seemed determined to build around their happiness. "It's like he's watching our every move," Tanya confided to Marcus one evening as they sat on the couch, exhausted from another day of tiptoeing around their landlord's whims. "I don't see him treating anyone else like this." "He's targeting us," Marcus replied grimly. "But what can we do? Moving again isn't an option, and I don't want to uproot the kids." They felt trapped, knowing that their options were limited. Pinewood Estates, which had once seemed like a fresh start, now felt more like a battleground. But despite the growing challenges, Marcus and Tanya resolved to stand strong for their family. They wouldn't let Charles's actions steal the joy they had worked so hard to build. The situation escalated one rainy afternoon. Tanya was cooking dinner when she noticed water dripping from the ceiling. Alarmed, she placed a bucket under the leak and called Charles immediately. "There's a leak in our kitchen," she explained. "Can you send someone to fix it?" Charles's response was dismissive. "It'll have to wait. I'm busy." Days turned into weeks, and the leak worsened. Despite multiple calls and emails, Charles did nothing. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, part of the ceiling collapsed, narrowly missing Maya. That was the breaking point for Marcus and Tanya. They filed a formal complaint with the housing authority detailing the unsafe living conditions and Charles's neglect. When Charles learned about the complaint, his response was swift and cruel. He issued the Jenkins family an eviction notice, claiming they had violated the terms of their lease. Heartbroken and furious, Marcus and Tanya decided to fight back. They reached out to a local attorney, a kind and determined woman named Rebecca Hayes, who had a reputation for taking on cases against unfair landlords. Rebecca was appalled by the Jenkins family's story and agreed to represent them pro bono. As the case gained traction, word spread throughout the community. Neighbors who had experienced Charles's discrimination came forward to share their stories. Local news outlets picked up the story, and soon, Pinewood Estates became the center of a heated public debate about housing discrimination. Charles remained defiant, insisting he had done nothing wrong. But as evidence mounted against him, his confidence began to waver. One day, Marcus received an unexpected call from Rebecca. "Marcus, you're not going to believe this," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "Pinewood Estates is going up for sale. Apparently, Charles is facing financial trouble and wants to unload the property quickly." Marcus was stunned. "What does that mean for us?" Rebecca hesitated for a moment. "It means you have an opportunity. If you're interested, I know some investors who might help you buy the property." Tanya, overhearing the conversation, immediately felt a spark of hope. "What if we did it, Marcus? What if we bought it and made it a place where everyone feels welcome?" With Rebecca's help, Marcus and Tanya connected with a group of community-focused investors. These investors were passionate about creating equitable housing and were inspired by the Jenkins family's determination. Together, they secured the funding to purchase Pinewood Estates. When the deal was finalized, Charles was forced to hand over the keys to Marcus. The look of disbelief on his face was something Marcus would never forget. Under the Jenkins family's ownership, Pinewood Estates underwent a transformation. Marcus and Tanya worked tirelessly to repair the neglected units and improve the property. They installed a new playground for the children, organized community events, and ensured that every tenant felt valued and respected. The residents of Pinewood Estates couldn't believe the change. For the first time in years, the complex felt like a true community. Marcus and Tanya's leadership inspired others to get involved, and the once divided neighborhood became a place of unity and hope. As for Charles, he disappeared from Willow Creek, his reputation in shambles. The Jenkins family's triumph became a powerful symbol of justice and resilience. They had turned their pain into progress, proving that even in the face of adversity, change is possible. Today, Pinewood Estates is more than just an apartment complex, it's a beacon of hope. The Jenkins family's story is shared as a reminder that fairness and kindness can prevail, even in the toughest circumstances. And every time Marcus walks through the complex, he feels a deep sense of pride, knowing that they didn't just fight for their family, they fought for everyone who deserves a place to call home.